How's the show going? Glad to hear. Welcome to the Marvel Star Wars panel. Woo! That's it. We're going to try that one more time again. Welcome to the Marvel Star Wars panel. Okay, now I think these folks are probably motivated to answer your questions. You're a tough audience.
That's right. I need cookies.
So please welcome Jody Hauser. Jason Aaron. And Granov. So we are here to talk Star Wars. I think the title of the panel might have been self-explanatory on that end. But guys, I guess to start off, just let's talk about your introduction to the world of Star Wars. Not professionally, but personally, the first time you got exposed to the world of Luke and Han and Leia and all those fine folks. Jody?
I actually don't remember the first time I watched the trilogy because I think I was about 3 or 4, and then we rewatched it again when I was like 7 or 8. And I remember my mom making a comment about Vader being Luke's father, and I'd forgotten it until that moment because I saw it when I was so young, and I got kind of mad that she didn't really ruin it, but a little bit. I was annoyed, and then what really sucked me in was when the EU novels started coming out, like the Timothy Zahn trilogy, because then it's like, wait, there's more Star Wars now, and I've loved Thrawn. He's still one of my favorite all-time villains.
I don't remember when I saw A New Hope for the first time, but I remember vividly seeing Empire in the theater, because my mom took me and one of my friends and my friend's older brother, and the older brother had already seen it, so he kept trying to tell us everything that was going on. I thought this part's great. He's going to cut that tauntaun open, he's going to stick Luke in it, just look, you're going to love it. So I had to threaten to kill him.
Did you ruin the reveal for you, or?
No, we shut him up long before.
Okay, good, yeah.
I was born in '77, so the first one I saw at the cinema was Return of the Jedi, and that's the first one I saw. And then I went to the whatever they were called, video stores, VHS stores, looking for the other ones and being really confused that there was no 1, 2, and 3. And I would have been, 6 or 7, and I was like, well, where are they? Why don't they have them? It took me probably a couple of years to kind of understand that actually there were no 1, 2, and 3, that it started with 4. But yeah, Jedi was the first one I saw.
Yeah, I'm the old man of the group because I clearly remember going to see New Hope in the theater. My dad was a big science fiction fan, and so he was all excited. And living in New York at the time, in the outer boroughs, movies didn't open in those boroughs at the same time as they did in Manhattan and other places. So he got us in the car and drove out to New Jersey so we could go see it opening weekend. And it was just, and it's one of those things where it sounds apocryphal, but at the end of it, thinking that this was so much like the comics I'd been reading and loving, it just seemed to me obvious that Darth was Luke Skywalker's father. Spoilers, sorry. When we got home, I said, I bet Darth Vader's Luke Skywalker's father. And my dad just went, yeah, right, no, it's Chewbacca. So I felt very vindicated when Empire did. But then let's fast forward a whole chunk, and your first involvement on a professional level with Star Wars.
Well, it is Rogue One. So I got email from Heather Antos, who said, can I call you to talk about it? And then she offered me Rogue One, and I was like, I'm going to say no, it's Star Wars. And I actually got to read the script 10 days before the movie came out at the Disney offices in Burbank. And I have friends who, when the new Star Wars movies coming out, they organize these massive ticket buys. Like there's captains buying 10 tickets each so we can have a huge group all in the same screening. So I was with like a group of 85 friends and friends of friends, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know everyone dies, don't say anything, don't actually sorry, people haven't watched Rogue One yet. But yeah, it was, and then like the whole time, and no one knew I was working on the comic yet because it hadn't been announced, so I'm like very quiet, watching everyone's reactions during the movie as well as watching the movie, and then afterward we all hit the bar that's close to the movie theater that we always go to talk about the movie, and again, I'm very quiet and just listening to everyone's opinions. It's like, oh, you want to hear more about so-and-so? Cool. Yeah, I'm taking notes for no reason at all. Nothing. Do not see me do that. So yeah, it's still fairly new for me, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well, I've been doing the book that's just called Starwars, and I guess Axel Alonso, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, called me a few years ago, kind of right after Disney and bought Lucasfilm, and he just said, hey, do you want to do Star Wars? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. I didn't know what I was saying yes to. He just said Star Wars. I said, okay. I didn't know if I was doing like a Jar Jar book or like what I was doing. And I was like, yep, I'll do that. And then a bunch of us, like me and Kieran Gillen, who did the Darth Vader book, John Cassaday, who drew the first arc of Star Wars, and our editors and everything, we got to go to the Lucasfilm offices, and they gave us a tour of the archives out at the ranch, which was cool. So if you want to see like a bunch of grown people acting like kids when you're walking around a warehouse, like it's a warehouse and there's boxes, but then you look in the box and it's like full of lightsabers or blasters. But like, oh hey, there's the Ark of the Covenant sitting over there. There's Yoda. So yeah, actually the first couple arcs of both those books we wrote like that weekend, sitting in the bar after spending the day and wandering around the archives. We all sat in the bar and put together all the big beats of both those books.
My Star Wars involvement goes back before Marvel got it back, and back almost 20 years, because I did quite a bit of work illustrating Wizards of the Coast. Used to do a Star Wars role. I don't know if they still do actually role-playing games. So I illustrated those books back like 98, 99, something like that. So way back, and it's kind of doing the covers now. It was almost like a full circle, almost 20 years later. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Started to see you have a pub.
Yeah, it was one of my first professional illustration jobs out of college, doing those books.
Yeah, not a bad place to start.
Yeah, it's really horrible. I dug some of it out recently, and yeah.
And to clarify, West End first did the RPG system, and then Wizards of the Coast, and now Fantasy Flight has the Edge of the Empire. I've played it, and I've played in a couple. I've actually played in one very long-running Star Wars RPG.
Do we have any folks here that are playing the RPG?
I played the Wizards of the Coast, the Saga edition and the one before that.
Probably saw howdy stuff on there.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, I enjoyed it.
Great.
That's good. It's really good stuff.
It's good work.
I forgot how good it was.
And as far as Jason's run, what you're going to actually find out about another 2 issues is that this is, in the end, actually a Jar Jar book that he's been.
You just gave away the whole series.
Oh,
George.
yeah, sorry, spoiler. So, but yeah, so Jody, you're working on the Rogue One adaptation. So you mentioned already that you had the opportunity to kind of listen in on some of the reactions to the film and kind of help to inform your script and working on that book. Was there anything in particular that you really wanted to take away from it, and make sure that you brought to it that hadn't been clarified enough? That, like you said, you want to hear more about this character. Was there something particular that was dear to you that you had the opportunity for?
Well, and it's like the initial interviews I did, everyone asked, like, what's your favorite character from the movie? And I was like, I don't don't have a favorite. I really dig them all. And then I started writing, and I'm like, Bodhi's my favorite. Bodhi everything. So sort of getting to see. I just like a lot of the scenes that are hinted at that we don't get to see. So one of the things that I was really excited I got to do is the scene where Galen convinces Bodhi to carry the message, because if that hadn't happened, none of this would have happened. So sort of seeing like the whole linchpin for everything that goes on in the movie, that was something I really wanted to put in, and I was glad that they totally approved it and had no issue with me doing that.
Nice to be that piece of canon that you, wow, this is kind of a,
Yeah, I was saying before, so I feel like I was like writing like Rogue One fanfic, and then Lucasfilm was like, oh, it's real now, cool.
Jason, I mean, you've been on the book for a while now, so you've had a lot of opportunity to really play with a lot of the toys in the universe. Anything in particular that it was the moment you're like, wow, this is so cool that I now get my hands on this.
Right. Well, I mean, the whole thing from the get-go. Again, like I've been doing this for a while, working for Marvel for a while, so I kind of had those moments the first time I wrote Spider-Man, the first time I wrote Thor, and all these different characters, but then you kind of get used to that, and it's just your job. But then out of the blue, suddenly, I wasn't expecting to be writing Star Wars, and then I am. So yeah, sitting down to write that first issue, I realized like this is the only time I'll get to write Star Wars #1, so I'm going to do it upright. So I put on the John Williams score and everything. And yeah, kind of the Han Solo is the first character we see in the opening of the book. So writing dialogue for Han Solo for the first time was pretty cool. But I think of the more recent stuff, like I wanted from the get-go to figure out how can we do a Yoda story, because we're restricted in terms of the time period we're dealing with in the book. We can't really have Yoda pop up then, although I came up with a whole lot of different scenarios and ideas and got them all, and they all got shot down. But so we figured out that we did a story that had Yoda in a flashback, and then sort of Obi-Wan on Tatooine, and then Luke in our present day, all kind of dealing with the same sort of thing that was loosely connected. So writing Yoda was really cool, and it was really hard. Like, everybody can do like a bad Yoda impression, but when you sit down to write that dialogue, it's not so easy. So at one point I just stopped trying, and I just wrote all his dialogue, and where he's just talking normally, like, "Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm Yoda." Like, I'll change it to Yoda speak later. And Lucasfilm is like, "What? Does this guy not know who Yoda is?" I got it. We'll get it. We'll get it in post.
If he said, I'm Yoda, you know who Yoda is.
Isn't that how he says? I'm Yoda, y'all.
I would love to have one of those pages just accidentally make it through. All the way through.
So yeah, we'll do that. We'll do the director's cut.
We'll talk with Jordan when we get back.
Okay.
Adi, any particular favorites for your cover subjects? I mean, you've had opportunity to play with.
Well, I'm not the most excitable person when it comes to it, so I just always try to do as good as I can, but it doesn't matter what it is. So I'm kind of a really bad subject for this topic. I'm not like a super fan or anything. I like it. And when it comes to me, I try to do like as good a job as I possibly can, and when people like it. Now the only thing that I got pretty excited about is when and this doesn't really have much to do with the books themselves, but I don't know how many folks know, but George Lucas, as you know, gets first refusal to buy the original art that any Star Wars done by anyone. He has to get the first refusal on it. So when he decided to buy my A New Hope cover for the reprints, that's the only time that I was actually really quite excited, because I realized he was buying it. It wasn't a company. It was actually him buying it, and we had to ship it to his vineyard, and that was pretty exciting. So
Yeah, I remember you emailed me when
did I?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
You were jazzed.
Usually I'm pretty kind of
Yeah. This is an excited Adi right now.
No, I mean, work-wise, I just I internally obsess over everything all the time, and you know, when I got to do the Darth Vader covers, I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to do a really, and it was again, you know, Darth Vader #1 by Marvel for the first time in a long time, and it was really important to, you know, not kind of ease into it, but to actually come out of the gate and, you know, do a really good job. So that was really, really important, but I wasn't freaking out because it was Star Wars or anything like that. It was actually because I just kind of saw it as a big deal.
You recognized it for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
occasion that it was.
Yeah, so, but yeah, the excitement only really came from that moment. You know, so.
I mean, all you guys are, everybody's reading the books, right?
Yeah.
Again, this, that. Everybody's reading the books, right? So, I'd imagine at this point you probably have some questions you want to ask. This is an opportunity you don't often get. So, if we've got a microphone up here, anybody want to go ahead and start us off? Get a ball rolling?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that your Star Wars book, Jason Aaron, is perfect. The art, the plot lines, everything in there. You guys, you and whoever else works, the art does the artist, and you write the stories and the lines and the plot and the everything else works on that. It's just amazing professionals. I can watch another movie. I just love it so much. Just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I was just wondering how far you can push the story in terms of like what can be canon and what cannot. Because I know in Jason Aaron's run, you've given Han Solo a wife, you've introduced the Journal of Ben Kenobi and all that. I was wondering like what are your parameters of what can and cannot be canon now?
Well, I mean, Lucasfilm never comes and says like, here are the parameters. It's kind of case by case. So you just say, hey, can we do this? And they say, no, you definitely cannot do that. Or, no, but why don't you do this? Or, sure, go ahead and do that. So there are a lot of no's. Sometimes you don't know why they say no, like, was it just not like that idea, or does that conflict with something else? Because, they're doing movies and cartoons and novels, and that's
They're
all.
still doing movies?
Right, I think, yeah. From now until the day we die. So all that stuff is canon, right? So it's their job to sort it all out and make sure it all fits together and nobody's stepping on each other's toes. But I've always been more surprised at the stuff they do let us get away with. We had Luke fight Boba Fett. Like, we figured out a way to do that kind of in the first arc. So we had Darth Vader and Jabba the Hutt hanging out together in the first arc. So stuff like that, I'm always like, oh, they really gonna let us do this?
Thank you.
We had 2 Star Wars movies come out within like a year of each other for the first time since the Christmas special. And both of them were, the heroic lead was a woman, and I was curious if there was any conversation at the comic book level to increase the amount of like action sequences and heroic lead positions that women take.
You mean like directives coming from Lucasfilm or just us among them?
Both.
No, I mean, again, Lucasfilm's never said like, do it like this, do it like that. It's very much Marvel saying we want to do books like this, and Lucasfilm giving a thumbs up or thumbs down. So no, they never said that, not to my knowledge. But I mean, yeah, of course, when we're doing the books, I think you want to, we don't want to see Princess Leia just as like a damsel in distress. We want her to be very actively involved with the story. I think she has been.
She kind of always was, so.
Right. So yeah, I think we're always certainly aware of that.
And Jody, your book, obviously, it's coming off the movie, but strong female lead.
Yeah, and we did get to do a little bit more with Jen and go a bit more into her background. backstory, and I didn't actually have a chance to read the young adult novel that came out featuring her, but they didn't want me to seed some things into that. And, you know, we do see a little bit of her growing up and being trained by Saw, and, you know, some of those details have made her who she is, and I think that really helped show, like, why she's so, because at that point she lost two fathers, so, you know, Star Wars, the movie about daddy issues. Series about daddy issues. But yes, getting to explore those character moments, because I think, you know, strong characters are great, but seeing what made them strong is what's really interesting to me as a writer.
Okay, so with whatever knowledge you guys have of the universe at large when it comes to Star Wars, expanded universe included, if you had to choose within your medium any era in the Star Wars timeline, again, expanded universe included, what would your ideal era to write for be?
Mine's easy. I mean, it's the one I'm doing. You know, I get to write Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie, everybody running around together. You know, our book, the opening started moments after the end of A New Hope, basically. So I'm doing it right now.
I mean, I think it would be super interesting because I haven't followed all of these things that are coming out, but I don't think they've gone too deep into the past like they did with the old EU stuff. So it might be kind of cool to explore that and see sort of what the new paradigm for all of that is. And you know, especially now that we have new characters like Maz Kanata, who's been around for, you know, centuries, you know, sort of see the role that they played back then. That would be really cool.
Yeah, and as Ahsoka said, there's always truth in legends, so.
Very true.
Thank you.
Jason, can you talk about working with like the story group and like what research you did for Star Wars besides just watching the movies?
Well, I mean, I was never as big into the expanded universe stuff growing up. I mean, I read a lot of the comics here and there. Sorry. Do all that. But again, I mean, our objective with coming out of the gate with the book was to make it feel like the movies, was to make it feel like, you know, it was 77 and you just walked out and seen this new movie called Star Wars and somebody handed you this comic and said, here, this is the next chapter of that story you just watched. So that's, we wanted to look and feel like that. Now as it's gone along, we've incorporated other stuff, you know, that weren't just from those original films, but certainly the emphasis right from the get-go by me and especially John Cassaday, the artist, was to make it feel like the movie.
So when it comes to the art of the comics, what sort of preparation do you do for making the characters look and act as accurate as possible? Their mannerisms, their facial expressions. What sort of preparation does it take to make them look accurate, just like the movies?
I only do covers. But, I mean, having worked with Lucasfilm approvals and I find it very frustrating because they seem to have, and I'm just kind of reading between the lines, they seem to have different criteria for different characters, and with some characters they're a lot more open to kind of an artistic interpretation, while with other characters they're really, really strict. And they also have certain, because I noticed, for instance with Luke, Mark Hamill has kind of, he looks a bit different from one side than the other, but Lucasfilm like him to look exactly symmetrical. And I remember seeing, you know, the company Hot Toys that make the figures, and there Luke looked very symmetrical, and I was like, oh, he doesn't look quite right because he looks better than in real life. And then I realized that Lucasfilm really, that's their directive. And when I was doing a cover that had him, I matched him perfectly because I went back and forth so much that in the end I just traced a photo of them because I couldn't get it right. And they still didn't approve it until I figured out, oh, they actually don't want him to look like himself. They want him to look like he probably wishes he. So from my kind of, you know, doing covers artist's point of view, it took months to figure out what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what they like, and again, I'm just reading between the lines, I don't know if this is true, but I think different actors have different contractual stipulations, and because I know with Han Solo, I've never had any problems at all. I've never had any notes back. It's always, however I drew them, they liked it. But yeah, like I said, with Luke, they've always been very, very strict. So.
Thank you.
And they do for the guys that are doing the interiors, there is an unbelievable archive of reference material that they have at their disposal. So a lot of when the notes come back, there also tends to be a request that goes from the editors to Lucasfilm for reference for what they're looking for, specifically something that works best for a scene or for a moment that they're getting notes back on, and then they will just get more reference than you can imagine to kind of help point them in the right direction.
Maybe they don't like crotch shots. They really don't.
Hi, my question is pretty much similar to the question someone else asked about if you could do any timeline, but I'm going to change it as far as more of character. So besides the titles you're already working on, if Marvel gave you a new title to work on, and it could be any character like Thrawn, Snoke, maybe throw in Mara Jade from the old EU, Darth Bane, who would you want to work on, and what do you think is a fascinating storyline, much like we're going to be getting later on, of Darth Vader figuring out how to make his lightsaber for the first time? What's a good storyline to explore and character?
I mean, like I mentioned Maz Kanata earlier, and I'd love to see her in her younger days. Like, I just think that would be a really interesting story, and again, that would be pretty open in a lot of ways. So that would be something I'd love to play with and just sort of see how. I've always loved like the really wise old grandmother types, and it's really just cool to see how they get there. So that would be something that's like just off the top of my head, that's something that would be a lot of fun to do.
I'd want to do a really gritty, violent Ewok story. I wouldn't hold your breath for that.
I actually want to see you take on the B. Arthur character from the holiday special. Or perhaps you could team up with the gritty Ewoks.
Or it's a versus. It's the Great War.
The Ewoks wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the character, but Donnie Yen plays him in and I'm a huge Donnie Yen fan. I'm a huge Hitman fan. I would love to see an expanded, just to see where that character, because he just kind of, like this in the film, and that's why I went to see the movie. I can see it in Star Wars, and I don't know if you guys know what Hitman is. It's a series of films about Kung Fu Master, and the guy in the movie is kind of a blind Kung Fu Master. And I really wanted to see more of him.
There's either a comic or a novel coming out. I forget which one, but I know there's more children bays coming out.
That's great.
I was going to say, to help you out, it's Guardians of the Wills with their storyline right before Rogue One of Baze and Chirrut, which is Donnie Yen's character.
Cool.
By Greg Rucka, the guy who's doing Wonder Woman now.
Jason, in your Star Wars book, the period of time of Ben Kenobi and his journal has been really popular with fans. Can you speak a little bit about writing those stories, exploring it, your thought process in creating the journal, and how much of it was you and how much of it was maybe anyone from the story group?
Yeah, I mean, that was me wanting to do grizzled old Jedi stories, like unforgiven Western kind of Jedi stories. I like the idea of old Ben, having to pull out his lightsaber every once in a while and get in trouble on Tatooine. And it was a nice device where we could do those stories kind of between bigger arcs. and use artists who could only draw like 1 or 2 issues. So I've loved doing those. And most recently we kind of incorporated that into like a bigger arc with the Yoda and Luke stuff. So yeah, that's been one of my favorite parts of doing Star Wars. It is there was stuff we could and couldn't do, with him in that time period. But again, I was really surprised and happy with the stuff we did get to do.
And those issues in particular generated a lot of talk about a Ben Kenobi movie, so I'm sure that's exciting that you're being connected with this possibility.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe I'd get a cameo. Dude in the cantina who gets his arm cut off. And werewolf.
All right, that's it. Yeah, looks So guys, looks like we've run through the questions you guys have got. Anything that we didn't cover that maybe some of you got? A few other folks line microphones there. One here.
Well, I don't know if
Go to
you're
it.
going to answer it. Okay, so I don't know how much you're allowed to say, or if this is already common knowledge, and I just don't know. I'm a little bit behind on the comic. So everything we've gotten so far has been between Star Wars and Empire. So if the comic keeps going, are we going to get between Empire and Return of the Jedi? Maybe.
You're talking just my book?
Your book, yeah. So if it were to continue.
Perhaps, but I mean, I've always, like we kind of talked about from the get-go of like, well, how long do we want this to run? At what point do we want them to wind up on Hoth, right? And I always said like, it could take years, we could take years to so many stories we could do between, those 2 points. Which has been like, I think Lucasfilm sometimes wants things to have like a more definitive time period. So sometimes when I'll write a script, we'll have a story, they'll say like, but it seems to take place over a long period of time, can we kind of pin this down? And it's like, this could have been a day, these 5 issues were like an afternoon, so, we could do hundreds of issues before we ever get to that point. It always felt like, once we got to that point, we're not going to turn around and come back and fill in the gaps, like let's take the time to get there. So, no, I don't think we're not talking about getting to Hoth, getting the Empire, because again, those are very different kinds of stories you're doing at that point, right? Than what we're able to do with this book.
Okay.
So I hope it's a long time before we get there.
Well, I hope so too, but I do want to know what happens between those movies. Now we don't have Shadows of the Empire.
Just wondering, when are you going to have the first appearance of Jackson?
He appeared on the cover.
Yeah,
I know.
The party cover.
Right.
That was actually, I threw it out there as a joke, and our VP of sales was like, "That's brilliant, let's do it."
That was one of my favorite alternative covers. It's like, we're not letting you in this. It was a great character.
Well, that's debatable. It's the best giant rabbit character in Star Wars I've ever made.
Green one.
Green rabbit.
Specifically, yeah.
Right. There are other better rabbits.
We just haven't seen them yet. They'll be coming up right after we find out about the Jar Jar thing.
I just wanted to say that the way you ended the Yoda, when Luke, there, and I don't want to say anything just because I read it, I just thought that was perfect, and it was just like, wow. I really liked the way you ended that one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You didn't get a job at Lucasfilm. I like this.
So as far as the crossovers go, obviously Vader's done, and we've continued with Afron, and it's come pretty early with Screaming Citadel. How long in advance are these crossovers planned? Especially with Vader Down, and coming into Star Wars and now Screaming Citadel.
Pretty far in
Yeah,
advance.
those story conferences take place long before we start going to the larger stuff.
Yeah, Vader Down we talked about way in advance. That started as it was me, Jordan White, and Kieran Gillen at a Brazilian steakhouse. One of those places where you eat so much you get like the meat sweats.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was just, we knew we wanted to do a crossover between the books, and out of that dinner came Vader Down. got to work further in advance, and you know, if you're doing a regular Marvel book. So we started talking, you know, a long time ago about doing another crossover, and Screaming Citadel was pretty much all Kieran. It was mostly Kieran's idea, which has been a lot of fun to write. Like, we knew we wanted to do something very different than Vader Down. So Vader Down was about taking the cast of our two books and having them fight each other. This was like, you know, let's flip that and force them to kind of team up with each other against a new big bad enemy. And Kieran loved the idea of sticking as much kind of gothic horror stuff in there as we could. And we never said it out loud. I assume we can now because the books they've all gone to print, right?
What's it?
But they've all gone to print, right? Screaming Citadel?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so they can't take them back. So we never talked about it to Lucasfilm, but we were doing like Temple of Doom basically, like down to, you know, Han Solo, Harrison Ford getting kind of switched into a bad guy at one point. So we tried to dance around that, or Lucasfilm would kill it, like too honest. But again, like there's lots of crazy stuff that I was surprised they let us do. You know, we turned a Wookiee into kind of a werewolf at one point. So.
It's funny how if it's treated with a wink and a nod, they can be a little more receptive usually. I mean, there are times that they'll push back a bit.
Right, there's a lot of new stuff in there. There's new characters. So yeah, it's not just a rehash of Star Wars stories we've seen before. It was something new. So that was a lot of fun. It's fun writing Luke and Afro together.
Yeah, it's been a good story so far. Thanks, guys.
Hello. A little bit earlier, somebody mentioned everyone's favorite Christmas special, Life Day. So, yeah. So, say the holiday season comes, Marvel comes to you and they say, well, this is something. How would you go about recreating Wookiee Life Day to be good in any way?
Bring in the great Ewoks?
That sounds like a tall order. Maybe add Jackson to that. I don't know. I mean, I would love to do more stuff with Wookiees. I don't know if we'll get to do that ever, but I would love to explore more Wookiee stuff. I don't know if it'd be a Life Day story, but.
Got it. You hate Christmas.
Who was the?
Christmas.
Who was it Chewbacca's uncle who was in it?
Yeah. Yeah, we got somebody verified.
What was his name? Nobody?
Even I can't remember that one. I don't hate myself that much.
It's, you know, it's best we all forget that ever happened.
When they finally get to Hoth, you know, it could be Wookiee Life Day when they get there and it's snow falling and
there you go.
There you go. See, she's already doing it.
Chewbacca finds a little tree that kind of bent over. All right, well, we're actually pretty close to the time we're allotted. Actually, we're a minute away from the time we're allotted for the panel, so it looks like we hit right on the number of questions we had. So, guys, hope we covered everything for you, and hope you guys are enjoying the books as they're coming out. You can thank these fine folks for the work they're doing. Thank you all for taking the time to come out. Enjoy the rest of the show. We'll see you out on the floor